Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices, and we do many webinars on many issues, but this is a rather special one. This is one where I'm going to disappear in a minute, and we've got three sixth formers who are going to interview our guest today. We're going to look at something called the Green School Project, which is about making schools more green, more environmental, training people in green skills. But we have Henry Greenwood, who founded that project, who's going to talk about that today. So what we'll do first of all is show a little video, it's only about a minute or so long, which was made by Henry 5 years ago, but it will at least show you the ideas he had when he started. And then we can ask how he's developed since then, and then we can go over to our students, who I'll introduce when we get to that point.
Students in the UK put environmental issues at the top of a list of social and political themes that they're interested in, and the number of jobs in the green economy is soaring. However, only a third of secondary schools are running environmental projects, and most teachers think that their school is not doing anything aimed at developing skills for students for green jobs. Green Schools is being set up to close that gap. It will become the UK's largest network of environmentally friendly schools, implementing student-led sustainability programmes via a fun, engaging and innovative series of student-led activities and national competitions. The Green Schools programme will equip students with the skills required to fill jobs and enhance their prospects of accessing university, and it will enable a generation of students to become environmental leaders, able to change behaviour in their communities. What could be better than a programme which will help students to fulfil their potential whilst developing a more sustainable future for society?
That gives you some idea of what the Green School was some years ago, 5 years ago, in fact. Henry, I'm glad you joined us today, and you're looking just the same age as you did in the video, which is quite remarkable. I wish I could say the same. Okay. So what you started this 5 years ago, and you had a definite idea of what you wanted. Now, 5 years on, what is the Green School Project now? How has it changed?
Right. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting seeing that back. Some of the basic ideas behind it are still the same, but kind of what it looks like in practice is quite different. It reminds me that how early days it was. I was calling it Green Schools then, but so I hadn't even decided on a name properly. So I just added the word project on the end of it. What we started, I started Green Schools Project. Really with an idea of supporting as many schools as possible to help them to set up an eco team where they would run a variety of environmental projects. So they're kind of building skills as they do the projects on topics like energy saving, reducing waste, encouraging walking and cycling to school, growing vegetables. So, you know, all the kind of projects which lots of schools do around the country. But, you know, I think even more should do. That's how it started and how it was for a few years. As time went on, and I think kind of 2018, 2019 was a bit of a tipping point in terms of awareness, and we realised that actually, you know, we stopped calling it climate change and we called it the climate crisis, and we realised that, you know, what a serious situation this was in. And I thought, while that's a good start, there's more that needs to be done in schools as well. So we developed a series of teacher training sessions, and so we ran some of those last year. And this year we're piloting a completely new program, actually, partly because our program of eco team support can't run this year because of the problems with year groups and classes mixing. But we had it planned anyway, and we're calling our new program Zero Carbon Schools. And the idea is to really work in depth with a school. So it's for the pilot, it's me working half a day a week in 4 schools. Running student sessions on actually calculating the school's carbon emissions, developing plans on how they can reduce them, and then involving the whole school community in doing those projects that will actually take the school's first steps to actually reducing their carbon emissions, with a goal of eventually, when it's possible, reducing to zero.
Okay, well, let's go through them step by step, shall we? Because that way, then we can sort of build up the story. But just one more question, especially because we are living in Enfield and people will be interested here. In a way, this all started in Enfield when you were a teacher. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I started my teaching career back in 2003 at Kingsmead School, and then I actually spent 2 years there. I went to live abroad for a couple of years after that, but then when I came back to England, went back to Kingsmead. In the meantime, I had sort of furthered my kind of interest in the environment, found out more about climate change and realised that we're in a difficult situation. So at Kingsmead at the time, I decided to I basically invented a job for myself, called it Sustainability Coordinator. Took the plan to the head teacher at the time, and fortunately she supported me with this idea. And we assembled a group of students. So I started with sixth formers, with the year 12 students. We kind of did a bit of a review of the school. We followed the Eco Schools approach, where you do a sort of an environmental review, create an action plan, and then just tackle some projects.
Okay.
So we went. My favourite project was our energy saving project, and which, I was a maths teacher, so I kind of developed a spreadsheet to record all our savings, and we managed to save about £37,000 over 3 years on our energy bills.
Okay, well, this is the point where I disappear. Well, not totally disappear, I'll be there, and I'm handing over to 3 people that we have here. I mean, we've got Navia West Lawson, we've got Anna Revi Diego, and we've got Olivia Eakin, and they're going to take over now and ask the questions. So Navia is going to sort of orchestrate it and share it. So, Navia, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. Hi, Henry. To introduce myself, I'm Navia West Lawson. I am the chair of the Enfield Youth Parliament. I'm the Deputy Young Mayor of Enfield, and I sit on the UK Youth Parliament along with Olivia, and Anna is also part of the EYP. They are my lovely team, part of a project that we kind of started. Me and Anna went to Bishop's, and we realised the same, where you realised that like stuff in school wasn't being taken seriously in terms of green space and carbon emissions. So because we were on the same prefect team, we came up with this idea to start documenting like when we would recycle. So us as students, we were aware that these things are being recycled. So the project is called Enfield Goes Green. And what it is we're trying to encourage more schools to do what our school did, which was put green bins around schools, in our school, around the subjects which had a lot of paper consumption, so like IT, English, science, to provide them with the opportunity to put those paper objects in the bin. And then at the end of the week, we would go around all the school and take the bins and just put them out in the recycling. So we knew that we were doing our bit that we could in school, and it actually worked. So there was fears that it wouldn't work because people wouldn't put their things in the green bins. But as far as it did work in the end, and it was really, really successful. So yeah, that's the project that we started, and it's really nice to have you to talk to you. I'll hand over to Olivia to introduce her.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm also a member of the Enfield Youth Parliament, and I'm also a deputy member of the UK Youth Parliament. I'd just like to say nice to meet you, Henry.
Oh yeah.
Hello, I'm Anna Revi Diego, and I'm also in the Enfield Youth Parliament, and it's nice to meet you.
So I think it's good if we start asking the questions that we have for you. So I'll start. So how did you approach getting schools on board to your project at first? How did you make that first step?
Yeah, so in the early days, as I said, the kind of idea came about it through the work that I did at Kingsmead, and I had some sort of everything that we did, all the projects that we did, I kind of kept records of and kept information about. And so in the first year that I started it, I actually went on to teach at a school in Hackney for a couple of years after that. But then when I kind of decided to leave full-time teaching for a while to set up Green Schools Project, I had all of these resources. So over the course of the first year, I kind of was turning those into something that I could put online with a website, and so people could find them online. But initially it was mainly through the contacts that I had through my time in teaching. So in the first year we worked with 3 pilot schools. One was Skinner's Academy in Hackney, which is the school that I taught at. So that was quite easy because I knew lots of the teachers and the students there. One school came through the Teach First network, because that's how I trained as a teacher, and so I went to a conference and met somebody there who was keen to take it to their school. Another one was through a completely random contact through a friend of mine who had a friend who worked in a school who was planning something similar. So yeah, it was all through contacts to begin with. As things grew, I guess we developed a bit more of an online presence. We got a bit of press coverage, which helped, and so eventually, where now it's mainly people will find us online. But yeah, in the early days, beyond contacts, it was about kind of going out to conferences, teach meets, kind of putting a stand up and just telling as many people as possible about Green Schools Project.
Okay, the next question is, what provides training to the staff in schools?
So it's a really good question, and that was something that, so for I guess 3 years of Green Schools Project, was a bit of a gap. I think our work was to support schools to run eco teams. One of the big barriers to that, or probably the biggest barrier to that, was the capacity of teachers to kind of do things that are above and beyond what they would normally do as a teacher. So we try to support them as much as possible, but it is quite hard, and it depended a lot on the kind of the dedication of that teacher who's running the eco team. So we actually one of the things that we did was to provide university student volunteers for schools that we were working directly with. So they would go and support the teacher each week for their weekly eco team meetings. But again, one of the big barriers, and I found this at Kingsmead, you need a lot of the teachers to be kind of on board and supportive for it to really have an impact across the school. So that's why we decided to develop a series of teacher training sessions. So we have one session on climate reality and response, because a lot of people know a lot about climate change, the climate crisis, but some people just don't. They're not interested, or they don't want to know. They just haven't taken an interest in it, and so that's useful to kind of just bring them up to speed a bit. And then thinking about how schools can respond. We've got another session about values, and how you don't have to teach about climate change in order to implement pro-environmental behaviours, and you can just kind of talk about values and that the schools have, which is important. And then the most important one probably is about supporting teachers to bring climate, nature, the natural world into the curriculum, and that can be done in all subjects. It doesn't have to just be geography and science, which is the sort of traditional ones. It can be English, maths, all the different subjects. Teachers are able to bring these topics in and hopefully make lessons more interesting.
I have a question, which is, do you focus mainly on primary schools or secondary schools to join the Green School Project? How do your methods vary for this?
Yeah, so I started just with secondary schools because that was my background, that was my experience. But I got somebody helped out. I think it was in the second year that we were doing Green Schools Project. I got a former primary school teacher to help me adapt the programme for primary schools. And since then, it's been a mixture of both. What I found is that, and actually that was one of the big reasons for starting Green Schools Project as well, actually, because I saw a lot of stuff out there for primary schools, but not much for secondary schools. And I think that's really important. And after running Green Schools Project for a few years, I understand why most environmental education organisations do mostly focus on primary schools because they are easier to work with. They're just a bit, they're smaller, they're a bit more flexible, whereas secondary schools are just big places with a very kind of like pressurized timetable. There's not much space in the timetable, and so they are harder to work with, but I think it's really important to work with both. And what we found is that the mixture that we have is roughly in the same proportion of kind of primary to secondary schools. I think there's sort of 4 or 5 primary schools for every 1 secondary school. That's kind of the mixture that we've got in the schools that we work with maybe a few more secondary schools. So a mixture of both. And you asked what the difference between the two are. Actually, we started by kind of changing the projects and adapting them for primary and secondary. And actually what we found is that, if you focus at kind of the projects at sort of lower end of secondary and upper end of primary, there's quite a lot of overlap there. So the resources are actually the same, but then actually when they get implemented, then they might go off in different directions. And then we would encourage the volunteer or the teacher to kind of, take the projects wherever they want. Obviously the teacher training would vary depending whether it's primary or secondary, but a lot of the themes are the same.
And how do you advertise this to schools and encourage them to go green?
I mean, we don't really do much advertising, actually. I tried a bit of advertising. I've actually got a friend who works at Facebook, and they give all their employees some free advertising, which he provided. He did some for me, but it didn't really generate all that much. So it's mainly, I guess, because we've been doing it for a few years. The name Green Schools Project helps. Everybody knows what we do by just from the name. So I think we come up in Google searches, quite a bit. And so I find that teachers who are interested just kind of find out about us through searches online, and then on our website, then we've got a kind of a registration page. So if a teacher's interested, they can register there. And then get access to the free resources. In the early days, we actually charged schools for the resources, but I quickly realised that most schools don't really pay for that. So we made them free a couple of years ago, and so you can access all of that online. And we do charge for kind of in-person stuff. But having said that, we charge schools a sort of a subsidised amount, and then we get some funding through sort of grants and sponsorship as well.
Okay, so my next question is, what has the Green School Project achieved so far?
I mean, I guess we've slowly grown from when we started with 3 pilot schools to last year we actually worked with 40 schools. So that we were really pleased with that. We for the previous 2 years, we'd actually kind of doubled the number of schools, or near enough. I think we were 11 schools 3 years ago, then we went to about 20 schools, and then we went to 40 schools. So that had been growing. That's just in terms of the numbers. Most of the schools originally were in London. Last year we branched out of London and had a sort of a cluster of schools in Herefordshire and Norfolk. Also in 3 schools in Newcastle, 3 in Manchester. So we were kind of spreading out. Obviously, when coronavirus hit in March, then that kind of put a stop to all of that, sadly. So the program that was really growing, we had to put an end to. And actually, this year we've kind of really sort of refocused, I guess, and onto just it's local to where I'm based now, which is in Waltham Forest, and we're just focusing on 4 schools here on the Zero Carbon Schools programme. And because we can't run our other programs, I mean, we could do teacher training, but at the moment schools aren't interested in teacher training in that, because they've just got so much else on their plate getting through this year safely. Maybe that might change next term or in the summer. But what I'm really hoping is that if we run this new program well with those 4 schools, demonstrate the impact and the value of it, and then kind of apply for funding as we go through this year, then we'll be able to then branch out again and take this program and possibly our previous program as well to other boroughs in London and maybe further across the country as well.
Oh, that
Thank you.
sounds very interesting. It's a shame that COVID has stopped you from putting the teacher
Yeah.
programs in.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. It was a real. Yeah. I mean, obviously, everyone has so much to deal with, but yeah, it was a shame. While the school's closing has such a big impact on on lots of people.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what are the school's reactions to with the Green School project? Do they find it difficult to adapt to the program and to go green?
Um, do they find it difficult? I mean, yes and no. I mean, it depends how far they want to go, really. Like, there's such a range. I would say, you know, there are lots of schools out there which have like an eco team or you know, a group of students working on these issues and running some projects, and I think that's great. Having said that, I mean, there's a lot of schools that aren't considering this at all, and I think, you know, that's where, yeah, some effort needs to go into trying to change that and just getting schools to take that first step. But I think, you know, even the way that we set up Green Schools Project originally with just a you know, just working on some projects in a kind of, you know, extracurricular club or something like that, it's a good start, but it's not enough yet. Sorry, it's not enough now. I think it's really important that these kind of issues get brought within the curriculum. There's a great campaign around that called Teach the Future, which is aiming to kind of, you know, get government support for you know, really kind of repurposing and reforming the education system, so it's really dealt with seriously, getting it into lessons, and yeah, really making it a theme that schools take seriously, because it is something that, you know, young people care about, and, you know, rightly so, because, you know, it's literally their future that we're talking about. So I think it's really important that the education system does more, and that is difficult, because it's about changing the way that a school has operated for a long time. People are kind of just in their kind of patterns of behavior and routines, and it's about actually saying, no, we've got to kind of make a big change here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that.
So, what are you doing to get like more schools on board, and what do you find are the barriers when recruiting schools or persuading schools to go green? Because I'm sure it's quite hard, especially because it's quite a big change. I would.
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment we're not looking for new schools, just because of the situation that we're in, and as I say, we're just focusing on these 4 schools and trying to kind of get that right this year. But previously, yeah, I mean, we're around to help any school who are working on this. Some schools are kind of can do it all themselves and they don't need support, and that's totally fine. Often that happens when there's, you know, one kind of passionate teacher who really cares about this, you know, finds some students who are interested in it, you know, they set up their own group and they kind of just get on with it. I think one of the big challenges is persuading head teachers and senior leaders that it's important and that they should kind of support it, and that makes such a difference in a school. You know, the best examples of schools that I've seen doing work in this area is because the head teacher is passionate about it, and the head teacher is kind of leading on this and really kind of providing space for it within the curriculum and in projects for it. So that, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest difficulties. But I think that's changing. You know, when I first started Green Schools Project, all of the conversations that I'd had would be with classroom teachers. You know, often in secondary it would be kind of a geography or a science teacher, sometimes other subjects. But as time has gone on, you know, I am having conversations with head teachers and deputy heads and assistant heads, and they, you know, they have the ability to kind of change more in the school. So that's a positive step, and yeah, that's something that we need to see more of.
Yeah, you agree. That's very important. I was going to ask, have you always been passionate about climate change, and what inspired you to start the project?
Yeah, good question. I mean, my kind of light bulb moment actually happened when I watched. I remember watching. I think it was sort of around 2008 or something like that. I watched the movie An Inconvenient Truth, the Al Gore movie, and yeah, I remember watching that and thinking, God, this is quite serious. And like, I had no kind of particular interest or knowledge about it previous to that. But when I heard about it, then I wanted to find out more about it, and then I ended up reading about it, and and then that, I guess that was where it all started with me. And then when I was actually living abroad at the time, and then came back to England and as a teacher, and I was thinking, you know, I would like to kind of develop a role in the that helps supports the environment and sustainability and that kind of thing. And that's when I realized that I don't need to leave my job. You know, I looked around Kingsmead and saw, you know, so much needed to be done. You know, there's like, you know, the project that you mentioned about kind of recycling. You know, there were recycling bins in most classrooms, but they were hardly ever emptied. Lights left on all around the place, and you know, there was really no talk about the environment or anything like that. So that's, I guess, when I realized that, you know, there's a really valuable project to be done at the school, and then it's all kind of followed from that, really. Like, that worked out well, and then I just thought, well, let's try and set up an organization which can help other schools do something similar, and and I'm still going.
So with your different programs that you have, I've read on your website that you do different things, such as setting up garden patches and allotments, and the energy saving program. And I was wondering, is that different for each school, like in secondary schools as well? Do schools get to choose which approach they'd like to take, or does it just all come in one program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really important. I think, you know, every school is different and will have different priorities and different interests of the students who are involved and of the teachers who are involved. So we've got kind of support resources on, as you say, anything from energy to vegetable growing, encouraging walking and cycling to school, whichever project that the students or the teachers want to choose, then they can just go for it. I mean, with our resources, you know, you can follow everything step by step to the letter if you wanted to, but most schools, I think, kind of, you know, they have a look at the resources. You know, there's a PowerPoint with each one and a teacher's guide and a few kind of templates and so on, and you know, they're there as a support and a bit of a backup. But often I think schools will, you know, have a look through and get some ideas from it, and then just kind of take it wherever they want to go with it, in any case. And that's great. They can, and so it's totally flexible.
Sorry, okay. So what was your original goal from the start, and what do you want to achieve with the project?
I guess the original goal, you know, I just wanted to contribute to schools doing more to protect the environment, I guess, was the original goal. You know, our original kind of like vision was enabling young people to contribute to creating a more sustainable society, and I think that's a really important thing here as well, is that actually, you know, young people's voices in the kind of call for more action on climate change are so important, and you know, have made a big difference in the past couple of years, you know, with the school strikes, and you know, obviously Greta Thunberg's the famous example, but you know, there are lots of young people talking about this issue, changing their parents' minds, changing minds in their local community, with companies and politicians. So I think the more time has gone on, that's something that I really want to encourage, and just trying to enable young people and give them a platform to sort of get involved with this issue. Ultimately, you know, the big prize is a livable planet for everybody. You know, it's a big goal, but obviously we're just kind of doing a small part of that jigsaw. But I think it's becoming increasingly recognised that education has to play a big role in this. You know, young people need to know about this. Schools, I think, can play an important role in supporting the local community to reduce their carbon emissions, spread awareness about this issue. So, and at the moment, I don't think, you know, because of the current education system and the way it's set up, I don't think they're playing a very big role in this. But I think there's lots of potential there if they really kind of take the lead on this. You know, unleash the sort of energy and enthusiasm of young people who really care about this issue, then I think there's lots of potential there.
Definitely, I agree that education is very important, and for schools to give that message.
I also think I agree. Education is very important. And so I was going to ask, how do you monitor the schools to make sure that they're keeping on track with their projects and reaching their goals and pledges that they've made?
Yeah, with our Eco Team support program, we do that through our volunteers. So when schools join that program, I think I mentioned earlier, we matched them with a university student who will go and support the meetings each week. And so each week they just provide us with a short bit of feedback about what the school's doing, what project they're working on, how it's going. And that means that we keep a track of how the school's going, and then we can provide support either to the volunteer if they need a bit of help, or to the teacher or to the school. And so we kind of keep a track of things that way. With the Zero Carbon Schools program, that is actually kind of me being in each school for some half a day each week. So I'm kind of coordinating and running some of the program there anyway. So that's easy to kind of keep on top of.
The last question is quite similar, so I think you just answered it. So I think that's the extent of our questions from us three. So yeah, thank you very much for answering those and answering them in such detail. Really nice to have you here to speak and hear your process, because I'm sure that's what some of us might be wanting to do in the future, similar project, or to carry on, to take over, and you know what I mean? So it's really beneficial to have your input and your guidance at this time.
You're welcome. And I would just say that, I mean, there's potential for any school to do this. So, as a young person, if you want to kind of get involved with something like this, just go and speak to your head, young people speaking to head teachers or teachers and who to get support with this. I think that's a really good place for schools to start with this. So, if you find that not many other people are interested, or your school's not doing a lot, then there's still the potential to do something just by you can find a few other like-minded people and go and speak to the head teacher and tell them that you think that it's important, and just get started on something.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank all of you, actually. That was a great interview. I think you all did really, really well. I'm going to ask you just two questions. One, I noticed that when you started this and you started trying to make a school go green, by getting rid of plastics, doing all the things that people do, the school actually saved money. And I think it's worth saying that, because if schools know they're going to gain by it financially, it's in their interest to do it, isn't it, Henry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's that's an added benefit to it, that that if you're taking these actions, you can save the school money with it's just by kind of tracking your energy usage, monitoring that, taking some actions, raising awareness about it. That's absolutely possible. There's lots of other benefit. If you're encouraging walking to school, then that's improving health and reducing local air pollution. If you're learning about growing vegetables, you're encouraging people to eat more healthily. There's lots of other benefits in addition to the kind of the sort of so-called environmental ones.
Okay, well, in that case, let's finish, but let's ask the final question. And you partly answered this already, but I'll give you a chance to say it again. If anybody wanted to find out more about what you do and the work that you do with schools, where would they go to, and how would they make contact with you?
Yeah, so the best place to look is on our website. So it's greenschoolsproject.org.uk. Have a look around there, and if you've got any questions or you're interested in taking part in any of the programs, just drop us an email. It's henry@greenschoolsproject.org.uk or info@, drop me a line, and be happy to hear from you.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I mean, I think this is great. This is the first interview we've done where we involve students, and I think Nivea and Olivia, you did fantastically well in that. And role reversal, you ask questions of teachers rather than the teacher asking questions of you. Maybe that's how it should be more often. So thank you for doing that, all of you, and thank you, Henry, for taking part. We're going to do more of these with students asking questions, and we've got one coming up next week with the 3 students, or 3 that they choose, I'm not sure who it's going to be yet, interviewing Kate Osamore about her attitude towards climate change, and she's the MP for Edmonton. So I hope people will join that as well. Anyhow, thanks for doing it, and it's been really interesting listening to you, Henry, and I'm really pleased you came along today. So thanks very much indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you. And yeah, thanks to the 3 of
Thank
you
you.
for your great questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
and we'll stop this interview now.